Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the KPC podcast. I'm Carson Turner.
And I'm Hannah Thurman.
We have a lot to go through, from David Hogg clashing with Laura Ingraham last week to Trump's Happy Easter tweets that also include planning on cutting ties with NAFTA and how there's going to be no DACA deal and much more. But Hannah has the first story for today, so go ahead and take it away, Hannah.
All right, well, we're going to start with a very happy Easter message from Donald Trump. He first tweeted out Happy Easter in all caps, and then his next two tweets threaten, well, they don't even threaten, he says, no more DACA deal. So he says, Border Patrol agents are not allowed to properly do their job at the border because of ridiculous liberal, in parentheses, Democrat laws like catch and release. Getting more dangerous. Caravans are coming. Or just caravans coming, not even caravans are coming. Republicans must go to nuclear option to pass tough laws now. No more DACA deal. And then he tweets again, Mexico is doing very little, if not nothing, at stopping people from flowing into Mexico through their southern border and then into the U.S. They laugh at our dumb immigration laws. They must stop the big drug and people flows, or I will stop their cash now. Or cash cow NAFTA. Need wall. These big flows of people are all trying to take advantage of DACA. They want in on the act. And then he has... Those were all from Easter. And then he continued his tirade into today. Wow, there's a lot of them. But there has been a lot of opinions given on this. It's funny to me because he said they want in on the act. You have to be living in, or everyone that qualifies for DACA has to show that they lived in the U.S. almost 11 years ago. And that's a quote from a representative from Illinois. And there's a bunch of other immigration policy on that. It's not just if you're here, you're here. You know, there's laws for that, which there has been numerous times where he obviously doesn't understand some things that work. So that was one thing that is funny about that situation. A representative from Florida, who's also a supporter of immigration reform, tweeted out such a strong message of love and new beginnings from real Donald Trump on Easter Sunday, which I thought was funny. Not funny because he's threatening to take away DACA, but it's frustrating to me because he continuously has denied all these bipartisan plans for DACA. I feel like Democrats and Republicans have actually been working really well on this and really hard on it because I think a lot of Republicans do support some type of immigration reform that can help these kids that have come here without knowing. And he's been the one that has been saying no to them. So that's my take on that. I think that he's kind of trying to give Congress an ultimatum, but they've been working and he's just saying no. He doesn't like anything that they give him.
So it's almost like, from what I understand earlier, we talked about DACA, and that's what caused the first couple of government shutdowns, is Democrats and Republicans were sending in drafts of DACA, and Democrats were the ones who were saying, nope, not good enough, not good enough. But now it's at a point where Democrats and Republicans are working on it. But instead of the Democrats, it's President Trump who's saying, nope, not good enough, not good enough. And he wants to just get rid of it overall. And from what I'm assuming, hasn't looked into the new bills or...
The bipartisan
bills.
Yeah, there was one with, I think the main one was with Chuck Schumer and Flake, but I don't quite remember what it was. I think I talked about it in a couple podcasts ago. But yeah, also saying that we're just going to suddenly drop out of NAFTA, which we've been a part of for I don't know how long. And then he basically wants to focus on building the border wall. So no more DACA, let's focus on building a border wall, which is not going to happen.
I don't know how I feel because I know, during the campaign, he was not lax on immigration policy. He was very strong on it. But then once he got into office, I know a lot of Republicans didn't like how he went from very strict immigration laws to super lax. And then it's the whole DACA fiasco that's caused this whole government shutdown. It's almost like we can't even move past. I feel like he just needs to pick one or the other so we can move on.
I think he has been very continuously flip-flopping between numerous things, not just this. I think I read a quote from him from an article earlier today that during his campaign, he said, you know, like, we're going to we're going to take care of DACA with care, you know, like, it's not just going to be like, we understand that you're humans. And now he's literally on Easter Sunday is like throwing it out, like, that's so kind of ironic, but we'll see where that one goes. This has been dragged out for a very long time.
So. I don't even, it's almost like, do I even use my time to comment on it? Because it's like, why does it?
We have the same opinions, basically. Nothing really changes.
Except the president's opinion is changing constantly.
All the time. Okay, well, for your story, what do you have for us?
So I talk about David Hogg all the time because it's not because I have a secret crush on him or anything like that, but it's because he just keeps doing things that makes me go, dude, stop, please. Oh my God, why? So last week, Fox radio host Laura Ingraham tweeted a response to something that David Hogg talked about. He was upset that he didn't get into UCLA because he had a 4.1 or 4.2 GPA, which UCLA is a very prestigious school. So I mean, I don't know. It's like, I get his
tweet. Do you have it?
I don't have his original tweet, but I do have Laura Ingraham's response, which she said, David Hogg rejected by 4 colleges to which he applied and whines about it. Dinged by UCLA with a 4.1 GPA, totally predictable given acceptance rates. I think that's honestly not a terrible thing to say about him. Given what he has said about the NRA, Senator Marco Rubio, and basically those who oppose his views, I don't think saying that he whined is something that is terribly evil. However, David Hogg did not think so. He responded and said, so at Ingram Angel or Angle, I don't know. He tweeted at Laura Ingraham and saying, what are your biggest advertisers? Asking for a friend. # boycotting Ingram or boycott Ingram adverts. And then he tweeted, pick a number between 1 and 12 to contact the company next to the number. And he put Laura Ingram's top 12 sponsors and was trying to get them removed. And then he quoted her tweet about it and said, # shut up and be objective. And so it's almost like, you know, she made an observation, and then now David Hogg is going above and beyond to kind of bully Laura Ingraham. And I use that term kind of loosely, but I think not being able to handle a criticism, and instead of going above Laura Ingraham's argument, he just went straight to her advertisers to try to take her down. I think that shows the immaturity that he has. And then she responds, she says, any student should be proud of a 4.2 GPA, including David Hogg. On reflection, in the spirit of Holy Week, I apologize for any upset or hurt my tweet caused him or any of the brave victims for Parkland. For the record, I believe my show was the first to feature David immediately after that horrific shooting, and even noted how poised he was given the tragedy. As always, he's welcome to return to the show anytime for a productive discussion. And he went on CNN. He was asked about it. But first he responded to the tweet. He said, I 100% agree an apology in an effort just to save your advertisers is not enough. I will only accept your apology only if you denounce the way your network has treated my friends and I in this fight. It's time to love thy neighbor, not mudsling at children. But, I mean, we know that CNN and Fox have kind of been in this battle since the beginning of time. And I don't think I haven't seen anything on Fox that's been saying, I hate these kids. And I don't even think I've seen anything on CNN aside from what David Hogg has said that's been attacking, you know, the other side, at least deliberately in a way that harms and threatens them. And so in his CNN interview, he said, they, referring to those that don't agree with Hogg or the other 3 students that apparently represent the 3,000 students. That's the one thing I kind of think is funny, is that they have those 4 students that are always featured on CNN, but how are they supposed to represent 3,000, you know, minds? They can't. But anyways, he said, they can't push us around. All we're trying to do here is save lives. And when people try to distract us from what the real issue is, it's not only sad, it's just wrong. From a journalistic standpoint, she needs to be more objective and stand down. I'm not the issue. The issue needs to be gun violence in America. But what she's trying to do is distract us from what the issue is, and I hate it. But I think he misses the fact that Ingram is a talk show host. She's not supposed to be objective. And I think it's very ironic for him to talk about how unobjective she is when he has not been objective at all. I mean, he's only stuck to the news outlets that favor him. I have yet to see him go on Fox. He had the opportunity to debate with Alex Jones. He was so confident that he could take him down in a debate. If you were so confident, then go on his show, prove him wrong. And other people, like I said, Kyle Kashuv wants to debate him. Hogg refuses to. He also won't debate Alex Jones's son has now reached out to David Hogg asking to debate him. And I just think it's just another show. Hang on, sorry, I stumbled on my words. I just think it's further proof that he needs to be much more mature about this situation. I take issue with him complaining about Laura Ingraham not being objective when he himself is very unobjective about his stance. If he were not calling people, members of the NRA, child murderers, and people like Marco Rubio and Dana Lausch saying that they wouldn't do anything if they had children's blood on their face, and then Laura Ingraham says, you need to stop whining, and he goes, wow, why would you bully me? That's so wrong. Also, the NRA wants to murder children, but don't bully me and misrepresent me. What? Dude, do you understand what you're saying? And if he did one interview, just one interview on a separate side, he would be able to recognize, wow, okay, I've been very, very inconsistent in what I've been thinking. I need to step back, really construct my arguments, write what I actually think, and proceed from there. But I think it's the damage from being exposed to just one side of the media that he's not able to think straight, and his arguments are honestly destroying him. And even CNN's Brian Stelter, he commented on it. He said, let's see if I can pull up the quote real quick. It says, are ad boycotts the right answer here? I'm personally pretty wary of this. I think it's dangerous to see these ad boycott attempts happening more and more often in this country. My view is, let's not shut down anyone's right to speak. Let's meet their comments with more speech. Let's try to respond that way. I fully agree with that.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
Do you have any other things to admit? I've been talking for a very long time.
No, I completely agree that, I think that he should be willing to talk to other people about this, and I think that would help his case. Not that, that kind of sounded wrong of me to say, but the part, which I've said this before, but we're not going to get laws passed unless we on both sides are willing to talk about it. And it's not, because it can't just be a law that's going to pass in favor of one group or the other.
Right.
And it needs to be something that reaches everyone and majority of people support, and whether that's the smallest thing ever, that's the first step. And not allowing yourself to communicate with other people that have different perspectives on this topic refrains you from gaining knowledge on where you can create that law. Like me communicating with someone else that supports or that doesn't support gun legislation, well, why don't you support that? And where are the loopholes in your support for gun rights that we could maybe find a way to work together and say, like, okay, well, that wouldn't maybe affect you and you would be open to that idea. So maybe we could do this. That's how things are going to get passed.
And something he always presses, he says things along the lines of, this is not a partisan issue. Everyone wants people to, we don't want any more dead children. Let's not come together as Democrats and Republicans. Let's come together as Americans. But he is playing the identity politics game by only talking to Democrats. But if you're so focused on getting the problem solved, you will go on these shows. You should be talking and engaging with those you disagree with. And like you said, the only way to actually get a law passed that everyone can agree with is to talk to both sides in order to get everyone included. And like I mentioned last week, he had the opportunity to partake in the Stop Gun Violence Act, a 2018 law, but he thought it'd be a better idea to brag on Bill Maher, how he hung up on the White House. And I think that, like I said, still completely misrepresenting, I think he puts in a very bad name for the Parkland survivors, especially the ones in his group. Because like I said, I think, Emma Gonzalez should be receiving the media attention because she seems to be much more consistent in what she wants, and she disagrees with other views, but I haven't seen her attack anyone at all. And I don't know. It just bothers me how he's undermining the other survivors who have good ideas and want to actually save lives.
Yeah, I would love to see both Fox, CNN, all of the news shows that are very popular. I would love to see them become more open to other opinions and to bring other people on the show. But the reason why they're not going to do that is because they know their audience. Yeah. And their audience members are not like us. They don't want that.
I think there's a risk of, when you bring another opinion on, that brings the risk of, say, CNN has a conservative, and someone who's in the middle on politics is watching CNN, and they watch the conservative and they go, wow, I love his ideas. And then they switch over they don't want to lose that audience member, but I think it's that competitiveness that makes it fun. And one thing I do like about Brian Stelter is he will bring guests with different views on. Like, I know he had Ben Shapiro on, and like last week, and it was a really good interview, and it actually was one of the most viewed CNN reports. And I know the other thing, Tucker Carlson, his show is based around that, where he talks about, you know, this crazy thing's happening on this college campus. I have this professor talking today. Why are you doing this, professor? And it's a disagreeing debate that clashes, and that's the number one viewed show on Fox News is watching Tucker Carlson clash with people he disagrees with. Same with Brian Stelter. And the fact that Brian Stelter even admitted to David Hogg, he allowed David Hogg to lie about statistics on his show, but then later apologized. I think Brian Stelter is becoming a lot more in the center, in the middle ground, which is what news outlets definitely need. They need that other side. But yeah, I think we could run in circles and talk about this for 6 hours, so we should probably
All right,
move on.
so our next story is on the department, or the former Department of Veterans Affairs Secretary David Shulkin. He has been fired over a tweet a couple days ago. And so he went on to the Washington Post, or interviewed with the Washington Post, and basically said, yeah, so I didn't, or no, it wasn't the Washington Post. I'm sorry, it was CNN. He said that the General Kelly gave him a heads up that the president would be tweeting out a message in the very near future. And the next day, he sent out the tweet, and so the tweet was what fired him. And it's that's just interesting that that's how he chose to go about it. But are we that surprised? Not really.
Who was he again? What's his?
So he was the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs, and that's like one of the biggest jobs that you could have, right? So the problem with how he got fired is that Trump wants to replace him with the White House physician, Ronnie Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has been skepticism around this because this group is so large. I think it's like 300,000 or so. And this physician, I mean, what is his
credentials?
Credentials, his experience with being in charge of a group that large. He's a physician. I mean, Trump hasn't made great picks, in my opinion, that have had experience really with anything.
I think he'd agree with that because he fires everybody.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I don't know. I don't think that. I mean, I didn't think that like Betsy DeVos was gonna get confirmed, but she did by a very narrow margin. So, and since the process to go through confirmation with the Senate might take a while, he could just be interim for a while and then maybe get confirmed, maybe have someone else be it. But I don't see a physician being able to be Secretary of the Veteran Affairs. But, you know, anything can happen in this organization or this administration, and we are learning that every day when we see a new headline come out.
And why was the former guy fired? Because he tweeted something inappropriate?
No. There was something going on with his taxes.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Let me find it. Okay, so yeah, this is from CNN. His firing came after an inspector general report took issue with the VA's use of taxpayer funds on Shulkin's travel. Shulkin has defended his conduct and said people who have ideological disagreements with him use the report as a political exploit to remove him from leadership. So he also made an op-ed where he blamed political appointees for working against him within the department.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Interesting. Well...
That's all I got for that one. Just a little...
An interesting story in Britain. This is an article from National Review titled Britain's Joke War, the Pug and Count Dankula, which is the name of a YouTuber. And I'll just go ahead and read what I have highlighted from here. So it says, Count Dankula, a YouTube prankster, posted a video in which his girlfriend's pug gives a Nazi salute, watches Hitler footage, and responds enthusiastically to the remark, and I quote, "Gas the Jews," end quote. Mr. Dankula appears to be headed for prison, having been convicted of a hate crime. And it says, Section 127 of the Communications Act of 2003 declares it illegal to intentionally cause annoyance, inconvenience, or needless anxiety to another, which is very interesting because I think it's weird how in law, when it says that it is illegal to intentionally cause annoyance to somebody, I think that can just be interpreted in so many different ways. If someone comes up to me at school and they, those, let me try to think of an example. A protester, if someone's saying something I don't like, can I now arrest them for a hate crime since they're intentionally annoying me? This is in Britain, by the way, not the United States. I have a lot of issue with this law because it just seems that if you say something that someone doesn't like, you can get them arrested for a hate crime. Moving on, it says, Count Dankula was joking via the established comedy technique oh god, I don't know that word. I'm just going to say inconsistency. His thought process was pugs are the sweetest and most innocent thing on the planet Earth, while Hitler is amongst the most evil person who's ever lived, and thought the inconsistency would be funny to see the sweetest thing in the world do something that the most evil person in the world would be doing. And then it says, this goes into a broader context asking how rare and vanishing a liberty is the American notion of free speech. And it says agents from more than 29 forces in the UK arrested more than 3,300 Britons last year for internet trolling, which marks an almost rise in 50% in 2 years, with about half of these arrests leading to actual prosecutions. Then it says, Home Secretary Amber Rudd of the Conservative Party last week launched a new police unit tasked with going after internet trolls. And I feel like you said, in this day and age, anything can happen. The police are targeting internet trolls. And I never thought, I feel like I would see that in a movie that was satire. But now, if you say certain things online, you can be arrested, which is, I don't get that. Meechan's lawyer, the guy who is going to jail, said at a trial that no one had complained to the local police about the Nazi pug video. The police simply took it upon themselves to go after them, which, again, I find kind of scary. But Ricky Gervais, he disagreed with what has been happening, and he tweeted, if you don't believe in a person's right to say things that you might find grossly offensive, then you don't believe in the freedom of speech. And when you set out to scrub the internet of annoying people, your prosecutions are bound to be highly selective. So that's all I've got there, but your first thoughts? What do you think?
My first thought is, I agree with you that it's a very interesting law to have, and that you may not agree with those things, but you should have laws protecting you being able to say it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's not humor to me, but he apparently saw it as humorous.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you were to think of it reversed, like if it were back in the day and we had social media when Hitler was in power, and if someone's saying, this is terrible what he's doing, and like did something like that, like would that person have been?
Yeah.
Like you can look at it from different ways. I think he should have been smarter. He shouldn't have done it. It's a terrible thing to do. It's a very sensitive topic. And so that was a mistake on his part, but very interesting that no one complained. The cops were just like, well,
they found it and were thinking,
not even,
we need to go after
like
him.
Maybe a fine, and then like, okay, you can't go on this website or something. Like something like that.
A ban.
Not as intense
and
as being arrested.
Well, from another article that I have, he was interviewed and he talked about how YouTube was actually defending his right to freedom of speech. They said, we don't agree with what he uploaded, but we're trying to not police people based off of what we think. And I think this law can be taken out of hand so easily because, at first it starts out with good intentions. You're teaching your dog to do a Nazi salute. We need to send you to jail. But then it could be, if you are cursing, they go, hey, we don't like that. That's a hate crime. That's violence to my ears. Go to jail. Electric chair. Like, how far are they going to go? I mean...
Let's hope we don't go to the electric chair.
Yeah. I wish other countries would look at our First Amendment and do better in terms of mimicking it. And I think, the UK, it seems to just be going downhill. I know a couple journalists from America were banned from the UK because they were making a statement how in certain sections of Islam in the Quran, it allows people to, radical Islamists are killing homosexuals because they don't believe in the Quran it says that that's a sin. So they went to the UK saying that they thought that Allah was gay. And so they were saying that Allah supports gay people and stuff like that. And a lot of people were offended because they knew that that's not what it said. The Quran says that, gay people should be punished. and they got banned from the UK because they were trying to point out the inconsistency of how it was wrong that the Quran is against homosexuality. But they were banned from it because it was a controversial topic that they brought up, which is, I think that's
Very
just crazy.
yeah.
But yeah, hopefully, like I said, our country doesn't compromise its First Amendment, because I think it's the willingness to say certain shocking things that often do, a lot of good, especially in comedy. I know a lot of things that Dave Chappelle has done, Louis C.K., some of their most controversial bits have brought awareness to certain issues that make you look at it in a different light and can kind of, I think comedy needs to be pushing the boundary all the time. But I don't know where I'm going with that. But
no, I agree. Very interesting.
And then you have another thing to talk about.
Yeah, we can talk about the White House intern photo.
Yeah.
Which I showed you before. So basically the White House interns, a huge group of them, I want to say I for some reason want to say the number 60, but I don't think it was that many kids in the picture. They released a picture of all of them, and there's been a little cry of outrage for the lack of diversity in that picture. There, I think, was one person of color, and the rest of them were white or Caucasian, yeah. And I thought there was a good handful of women in there, but yeah, so there's a lack of diversity. And the clip that we watched before this was comparing Trump's photo of the interns to Obama's interns.
Yeah.
And Obama's interns had, diversity across the board, all people of different backgrounds, lots of females, lots of males. And you made a good point, if you want to bring it up again, which
what
I
agreed thought with. Was, because Democrats, they cater a lot to the working class and then people of color, so I thought it was very plausible that a lot of people of color were more passionate and interested in interning in the White House, where, for Trump, there is representation of people of color, but not as much. I think a lot of, white people like Trump, and so I think they were just more interested in going and working at the White House. But I think it kind of disappointed me, because I would like to see a more diverse representation of both parties. Right. I was disappointed by both pictures, to be honest. I think there should be more white people who are Democrats. I think there should be more people of color who are Republicans,
I think that Trump's picture to me was disappointing, but it makes sense that people of color aren't going to want to intern at the White House, because the Republican Party does, if you look at who votes for who, more people of color are more Democrat, but Trump has done so many things and said so many things that have hurt African Americans, I think, and so no one's really going to want to work for him. And so it's not like he was saying no to those people. I think there was just a lack of people that were wanting to be interested in that, which that's the problem. Yeah. I guess, of course, there's a lack of diversity, and that's a problem, but the deeper problem is that I don't think these people wanted to work for our president. Yeah. And our president isn't, he isn't calling to a large group of people. Yeah. It's one group, and that is white males and females. Some of them, that's
I think
problem.
In the like you said, in the deeper context of things, I think there needs to be something amongst Democrats and Republicans that doesn't turn it into well, if you're white, you're more likely to be a Republican. If you're not white, you're more likely to be Democrat. I think there should be something that is done to make sure that there is equal representation across the board. Because at the end of, I know there's a lot of different laws that have been passed amongst Democrats and Republicans, but at the end of the day, the way that I view the right and the left is that the people on the right want less government involvement. The people on the left believe that the government should be a little bit more involved to help those who might need it. Neither of those stances are something based upon race, and I think we have taken a big departure from the Democrats and Republicans that I think both pictures represent a bigger problem in the country that needs to be fixed to bring us all kind of back to the center. Yeah.
And it's funny that you bring that up, because I almost forgot that's the main thing is that I think Republicans want a lot of things to go to the state governments, whereas Democrats want things to go to more federal government control. And people like myself completely forget that is the main root of both of those. And that is why you see a lot of Republicans being like fiscally conservative. Like, and they say that now. I'm a fiscal conservative. They don't say I'm a conservative or I'm a Republican because there's so many other connotations with it.
Yeah.
And your mind goes somewhere else immediately rather than, oh, you want less government control. Yeah. Like, that's not what I think of when someone's like, I'm a Republican.
Well, that's another thing I've noticed is whenever talking to or just seeing people on different political spectrums is I just hearing them go on a specific talking point on why they're liberal or conservative, sometimes it just makes me think, I'm like, what does this have to do with the government's involvement?
Yeah.
This has nothing, what does social issues have to do with the government's involvement?
Yeah, it's just how it kind of...
Yeah, can we step away from this and bring it back to what it's actually about? But I also think our politicians on both sides play into that a lot too. So I don't think it's a people problem, I think it's an American problem. And I've also noticed because of this political or team strategy, I feel that a lot of people don't even use the term American, or at the end of the day we're all Americans, we're all under the same boat, so we need to learn to get along. But
I don't see that happening in the near future, unfortunately.
I think the age of the internet has thrown a huge curveball to everybody, and until we learn how to properly manage it, we're going to see a lot of problems. But I think we need to learn how to manage it very quickly before things turn south. But yeah, and I think I have one more story to talk about. So the last thing, this will be a lot quicker. Brian Stelter had a Parkland student. She was the editor of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School newspaper, and she talked about how journalism needs to be a form of activism. So we were just going to kind of give our thoughts on that. Do you think journalism is activism, or do you think you need to be objective?
I think that journalism, when you are writing for a newspaper, and like we said earlier, that even when you're a broadcast journalist, you should be listening to both sides. So I think that you should be objective. I don't think that you should be biased at all. You should look at both sides. You are representing both sides when you write a story. Yeah. That is your job, is to represent both sides. Whether you're reporting an event or anything, you have to look at both sides of the story. Yeah. You cannot just write for one side. But journalists have been leading they're very, like, a lot of movements have been led by journalists, I think, because even if you look at investigative journalism and with that, like, things like Watergate, like that led to, okay, well, can our president do anything? Or are they above the law? Like, simple things like, well, I guess it wasn't simple, but smaller things like that you kind of forget. Like, I mean, I think a lot of journalists are activists, but at the end of the day, you have to be not biased. Like, you can't be biased. Tell the story.
Or I always think that if you are biased, to admit it and be open about it. Because what's actually funny is Cal was talking to that student about, he was describing our podcast, and he's like, yeah, it's just two people talking about the news and it's unbiased. And I was like, no, it's very biased. We bring our opinion in all the time, but of course we build our opinion based around our facts. But I think a problem that I see a lot is news outlets will claim that they're objective, and then they go on this biased tirade, and I do not like that at all.
Did you mention that CNN said that?
Yeah, the crazy thing is that they talk about how they're not biased, but
they definitely are. Because when you think of CNN, you immediately think that
it's more of a liberal outlet. Yeah, but so I feel like they have either two options. They can either actually be unbiased, or they can admit to their biases and then proceed as forward. Because I don't have a problem with CNN.
No, I don't either. And when I'm gathering things for this podcast and the show, I make sure to look at the Fox News story too, because I know that I'm not getting both sides of the story. Yeah. And that's kind of what's frustrating, because you should be able to look at a story and say, these are all the people that should have been talked to. Yeah. But it's not, because they're only looking at the sources that are going to side with them. They're not going to look at different sources that should be involved.
I even had a problem getting the Laura Ingraham versus David Hogg story today, because every website was just talking about their thoughts on the situation. It's like, just give me the tweets that they were talking about, please, because I don't care what you think. So
you want to make your own opinion. Yeah.
But I think, that's all the time that we have for today, unless there's any last minute things.
That's all.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us for the, I don't know what episode this is, but for the KPC podcast, we will be back on Wednesday with our regular newscast. See you later.